Hey everybody, welcome back to Up the Vibe. And today I have the pleasure of talking to Hollywood, who is the host of Into the Weird. Hi Holly, how are you?
I'm really well, Joe. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, great to
Yeah,
talk to
thank
you.
you.
Taking a little while to get this going. We've had a few interruptions, but I'm glad to finally get to talk to you. And maybe first talk about Into the Weird and the choice of spelling. So the spelling is WYRD, if people want to find it, or WYRDE. So
Wyrde.
yeah.
So Wyrde is the old English spelling of weird, and I do enjoy anything that has a bit of history. I'm a public relations person, so I do love words. I'm a bit of a wordsmith. I'm a bit wordy. Anyone who follows my Facebook will know that I do like a good bit of copy, so I really enjoy um like throwbacks of words, and I also like balance, so I put an E on the end because it just looked aesthetically more pleasing.
All
So
right
yeah,
then.
I have my own little show,
Yeah.
Into the Weird, amongst my many projects. So yeah,
And like Up the Vibe, it likes to talk about various topics, UFO, the phenomenon,
anything.
consciousness, and all these other things, right? So tell me a bit about how you got into this world and how long you've been kind of interested in it.
So my shimmy into the wonderful weird, see what I did there, wonderful world of phenomena started as a child, really. Um, I've spoke about it many times publicly. I've been an experiencer of sorts since childhood. I was brought up in a very occult, esoteric home. So, magic, the unseen arts, divination, tarot, all of that sort of stuff was part and parcel of our everyday lives. My mum was a celebrated mystic and well-known witch, and we were surrounded by all aspects of different people, from druids to people who were into Kabbalah to Crowley followers, Golden Dawn, OTO, you name it, I was around it. And I had experience as a small child in Wiltshire. Wiltshire, of course, is a
Mhm.
hotbed of activity for those of us that are into this topic, and had experiences all through my life. Fast forward to being a teenager, we were the first family to get the internet in our street. And my mum, because I'm an I love information, so she purchased a computer, and I found a chat room. I think it was via Ask Jeeves or something
Yeah.
back then with a dial-up connection,
Yeah.
and discovered a chat room where people were discussing Roswell and Area 51. And so my interest was piqued more because I wasn't so sure the experiences I'd been having since childhood were alien, ET, them. I thought it was actually more occult stuff.
Mhm.
Fast forward again. Um, I've just read every book I could, been to every conference and meeting, watched every YouTube documentary, and then the time just felt right. Um, a couple of years ago, our mutual friend James, I discovered Dr. Greer's work, C5 stuff, and as someone who's been studying consciousness, and I'm really into that field, to sandwich consciousness and the UAP question and an issue together really ticked my boxes, and that's how I kind of entered the community from a C5 / heist human initiated contact experience events. So that's how I, sorry, my dog has decided to join the show. So
I can't quite hear
apologies.
it. A little bit, that's fine. Yeah.
She likes to do that. So I kind of moved more into the community about 2.5 years ago.
Mhm.
And boy, has it been a ride. And then I in my day job, I've been in public relations. I also used to host radio shows. So it just kind of made sense to
Yeah.
put my love of not being able to shut up on podcasting. So there you go.
Yeah. So growing up, that sounds kind of unique experience to be around all these people.
Hmm.
And is there any highlights or any moments that you really vividly remember that um, I guess give a bit of intrigue and interest to the listeners about what it was like?
I've seen some stuff. put it that
Okay.
way.
Would you share
Um,
something?
yeah, we celebrated the old ways in our house. So we didn't have, I had two Christmases. So the Christian Christmas on the 25th, but we celebrated Yule every year on the 21st. So we
December.
thought, yes, of
Hmm.
December. So we followed the
Yeah.
pagan wheel, the pagan calendar. So we have several high holidays a year. We've just had one yesterday,
Yeah.
Litha, which
Yeah.
is summer solstice.
Yeah.
And we were dragged round stone circles every summer for our vacations, Halloween or Samhain, as we call it. For those of us that follow the old ways, was a big deal. And I've just was exposed to a lot of different stuff. And in a way, it's certainly put me in good stead. But I've been part of pagan rituals. I've spent time with mystery schools.
Yeah.
I've been versed in several kind of areas. But yeah, wouldn't even know where to start because it was
Yeah.
very normal to me.
Hmm.
So I only realized that people didn't live the way we lived was when I went to high school and I'd go to people's homes and their mum wasn't doing what my mum was doing. We had full moon parties every full moon. The one full moon party we had Elton John's brother
Hmm.
come and he kind of hung out in our land for 2 days because he was a bit off kilt guy and we just celebrated life differently through the
Yeah.
eyes of the unseen. So it's hard for me to pinpoint things, but I certainly had a very colourful, a very magical, magic with a K, magical childhood. And yeah, I've seen some stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. And I guess the whole sort of maybe propaganda side to what the films say about witches and druids and things. I guess that's kind of. I know it's not experienced, but I just find it really silly. All the kind of the witch's cauldron and all this
Oh,
sort of
I've got a
item.
cauldron downstairs, Joe.
Yeah,
Um, you
it's
know,
the way it kind of portrays.
yeah, it's just
I just think they just
misinformation and it's caricature, isn't it?
yeah.
And there's a reason. Back, in the ancient times and the older times, there was always a wise woman that lived in the village, and she would be the midwife. She would be the herbalist.
Hmm.
She would be who the villagers would call upon to ease ailments. And through religious persecution, these wise women became witches. They
Hmm.
were going to steal your children and
Hmm.
rob your husbands. And very much I believe was stemmed from the Christendom, if that's a word, or
Yeah.
when this country became very Christianized, and in pre them times, we celebrated the land and we celebrated the moon and the passage of time and the passage of
Mm.
seasons, and we ultimately celebrated nature because nature's the heartbeat of our very fabric of existence. So yes, Hollywood, the movies portray, some especially paganism and Wiccan and witches and wizards all a bit nuts, but you know, that's not the truth.
Yeah,
And
it
some
seems.
people like me speak about this stuff, and I find there's a lot of females and males who are involved in the phenomenon in the UAP community, and many of us are practicing some old the old ways or Wicca or pagan or Judaism or earth-based religions, and I find that link really interesting,
Yeah,
really
I mean, there's a lot more interest in that now. I don't know if people would call themselves the same things, but certainly you'd find a lot more people now that are interested in um, more pagan rituals, into more herbal medicines and
Mhm.
understanding a bit more of I guess, a grasp of nature and trying to just be a bit more, get away from the TV and the pharmaceutical industry and all this. So yeah, we're slowly moving that way, although we maybe don't know where we are and are calling it, you know, movement back to sort of the old pagan ways of, witches and wizards, as you said.
I think I think we as society have become so hooked, and I'm so guilty of it. You've tried to get hold of me this week, and I'm crazy busy. You've always got 10 phones attached to me. I've
Hmm.
got a really high powered career. And we're all very guilty of forgetting that we're all energetical beings. We're all energy. Earth is
Mm,
energy, the nature's energy. And I think many people now of especially after the when the pandemic was happening, and regardless of your views on that whole situation, what that time did is it gave people back home. It gave people a pause. It
mm.
gave people the opportunity to not be running around crazy, answering emails, rushing to this appointment, bills, mortgages, da, 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 da. And people were able to just stop. And I think that's one of the few positives that came out of the world standing still, that we
Yeah,
were
yeah, I
able to
agree.
connect with ourselves again, and we were able to connect back to self. And
Uh,
self ultimately is part of the grand cosmic fabric of everything. And I have noticed there's more people who express interest in the unseen or the occult or whatever we're calling it this week. And I think that's because people are starting to sense that we are more than just, to coin a Robert Monroe phrase, we are more than our physical bodies. We are more than this vehicle that we drag around, which is our human body. So I can get very like mystical about this. So
no,
I'll
no. Well, maybe we can touch
of
on that a bit later, because I'm
course.
definitely fascinated with all that. But maybe we could talk a little bit about your podcasts, and in particular, I heard the John Ramirez interview. That was quite good. And it was amazing to for you to get hold of him. I mean, was he difficult to get hold of, or no? He was
I'm
pretty
very
easy to
lucky
get.
that,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm very lucky that I have friends in places.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I am
what was that
fortunate.
like? Seemed like he went well and got a good vibe, and he's such a nice guy, right?
He's a great guy, John. You've reminded me I need to message him back. He's a great guy, and I believe in life. Your intention is always, things go wrong, things don't always align, but if your intention is right, things tend to happen for you. And somehow I've found myself in this crazy world, this crazy community, and I'm very lucky that I do have direct contact with a lot of names that people would be like, "Oh my God." But it's not because I have, made a plan and God, I must make friends with such and such. It's just through, intent and having the tenacity to say, hey, I want to know more, can and how can I get to know more. And what a lot of people don't seem to realize, when there's names in this community, they're just people too.
That's
They're
what I
just
find. Yeah,
everyday people. And
I've had the pleasure of talking to some people like Elena Danan, in particular, who's just been so gracious to give her time and everything. And I know how busy she is. You do feel that this is what I find about this community, and maybe sort of puts an end to some of the criticisms, maybe from the other side, if you know what I
yeah.
mean. That if I wanted to try and grab for an interview a lot of the people who aren't in this community, I don't think I'd get. I'd talk to some PA, and it would be
Hmm.
like it never happen. I just feel like with this community, you get a lot of just ordinary people just happy to have a chat and just give you their time, and aren't so egotistical with it, I guess, as well. Just seem just happy that there's movement towards the end goal. We know what the end goal is, but just being part of that movement is. I feel blessed that I've got some role. I know it's not a big podcast like some of the people out there, but it's some part to play, and feel
Oh,
blessed to have had some people on the podcast like yourself. And yeah, that's the difference. That's what the community is, and I think
completely.
it's a great attribute.
I completely agree. And, I'm very blessed that I speak to the people I speak to. And when you have conversations, they're also going through this too. They're,
Mhm.
regardless if they're on the inside, they know some stuff. And those that are open to speaking, think how frustrated they must be knowing the information that they know, and
Mm.
knowing that this topic is going in this direction or that direction. And
Yeah,
they do want to talk, and they do want to share community and kinfolk. And I really do believe that. And I think, I would say too much, but I you know over the next coming time, more and more people that we wouldn't necessarily expect are going to be a bit more willing to talk. Others, like John, John said publicly on my podcast, well, show, that he was taking a break. He'd done everything he'd needed to do,
Hmm.
and he'd said everything he needed to say, and he was going to have a well-deserved rest. I think he's going to hang out with his wife and do their thing, and
Mm.
see what the next couple of months
Well,
brings,
I think he
because
deserves it for sure, but I'm hoping he does
right,
come back. He's
he
got
will, yeah, he
he's
will
got a
put
lot of
he
he's
will
got a
come
lot to give
back.
still. Yeah,
When
yeah,
John certainly has some very bold claims about what's happening next, and I hear those claims from other insiders. There's timelines do differ, but we are at the most remarkable moment right now,
yeah,
and I'm not in a position to share the things that I'm gratefully aware of yet, but what a mad time we find ourselves in,
yeah.
and people like John, protect them, God bless them, and we see what happens over the next couple of
Yeah,
weeks, months. I think we're in for a really interesting time, very, very,
yeah,
very, very soon. If
definitely.
what I'm
It's got
being
to happen at
told
some
is
point.
correct.
But
Pardon?
I think it's got to happen at some point. But I'm kind of more banking on the 26, 27 sort of period where things get a bit different. I don't know. A lot of people think that like in this year, maybe a little bit more will happen this year. Maybe you know more, but I think
Um,
it might be a few more years. I just feel it's still going to be a huge shakeup for a lot of people out there, and
yes.
you've got to do it at the right time because this news like that, given in the way that instills fear,
Hmm.
could shake society in the wrong direction. So we've got to
Agree.
expect it to happen um, with full confidence that it isn't going to completely destroy, well, not completely destroy, but disrupt
Yeah.
things to the point that it becomes more of a disadvantage to our pure progress than an advantage.
I I believe there's a changing of God, and I can't
Oh yeah,
really get into that, but
yeah,
it's
it's
not my
definitely
place to get into it. But there is a changing of God happening, I think, on the inside, and you know, we as a people have been lied to, we have been maligned, we have been, you know, these poor people that have been abducted. Where are all the missing people as well? I want to know where the missing people are.
yeah. The
And
whole David Paulides
yeah, like where
missing
are the
for
missing
one
people?
is amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
And, it's criminal what's happened. Laws have been broken. Humanitarian laws, crimes against humans have been made. We've had technology suppressed from us.
Hmm.
And it's absolutely criminal on every single level.
Hmm.
This cover up that's, potentially you know, 75, 90 years, if we're going by what Grusch has recently said about, what was recovered in Italy. Yes, when is there going to be the right time?
Hmm.
Will people will humanity face shock? Yeah, but we are facing the destruction of our planet. We are facing the destruction of our only home. We are facing catastrophic times that without getting on my soapbox, if we have technology that's been suppressed, that's been reverse engineered or gifted to us or recovered, and that technology can be used for the betterment of the world, and that we don't need to rely on fossil fuel, and we don't need to be damaging our only home, like we're running out of time. We have a chance to rewrite the future if we disclose this now, and I do believe that there's a proportion of those on the inside that want that to happen and are
Hmm.
pushing for that. And
Yeah.
the minority of these secret keepers, I think, is now becoming the minority. And let's call it what it is, Joe. These secret keepers have acted criminally. Someone's got to be held accountable.
I know, but given what I've heard, there is a potential for a lot of them to get off the hook
Right.
to allow them to speak and if I had the choice between um not having disclosure but all these I guess if I had to choose, if I had to get disclosure, but I had to know that they would, some of them would get off the hook, I'll be willing to accept a degree of that, as much as it might not be right.
I agree with that. And I
Um,
think we have to crack a few eggs here to make an omelette.
mhm.
A choice of
Yeah,
better
it's difficult
phrase.
choices, and
Hmm.
it's often the case. I think a lot of criminals do seem to get away with a lot of things, whereas when good serving people, get a speeding ticket, they, it's really bad, isn't it? The
Hmm.
law is very good at the people who want to, obey it, but those who don't, doesn't seem
Agree.
to doesn't seem to
Agree.
matter. But
I do agree with you there. And as much as it pains me to say, if it brings forth everything, well, okay. Well, what did we do after Germany? We took all of those scientists from Germany, we stuck them into a rocket program in America,
mm,
and they became heroes that got us to the moon. So, it wouldn't be the first time we've had to forgive criminal behavior for the betterment of humanity, but it's got to be done, and we've got to start disclosing. And I was talking about this earlier. People ask me all of the time, do I believe that disclosure is part of there's a plan? Given the fact I'm in PR, yeah, I think there's a plan. I
I think
think
there's a
that
plan.
plan's on
Yeah.
target.
Mm,
I think Dave Grusch. I'm very fortunate that I know people that know him personally, and the guys is a good guy. He's a
mm,
patriot. He's done the best that he can
yeah.
do for the people, not just the American people, for the people, the entirety of us all. And it's all about timing, and
Yeah.
the plan seems to be, that's just my opinion, nobody's told me
Sure.
that. John Ramirez has spoken. His phrase was shed never got word up, scheduled dissemination. um Other insiders, I think, may have touched on it, but no one spoke to me privately about that as such. But I think there is a plan, and I think that plan's
Yeah,
full
I
steam
kind of
ahead
agree.
now.
I kind of agree. But if you heard Jeremy Corbell recently, I don't know how recent it was, but he did take a bit of a jibe at those that say there is a plan, that because from his perspective and what he sees, it's a real fight, an infight between various factions,
It is,
and
yeah.
he doesn't see anything other than the kind of, I guess, the infighting and no kind of coordinated end state, which I guess I can see from his perspective. It may be that there is a degree to, in his from his perspective, that we aren't definitely going to end up where we want to be, which is the sort of the disclosure and getting these
Mhm.
technologies, etc. But from sitting back here when I'm not in his world and having to deal with what he deals with and seeing things happen, and given the fact that actually life is going really quickly at the moment, given with work and everything else,
Mhm.
I just you can almost see a bird's eye view of the last few years and see, you know
Right.
what, there is definitely there are definitely touch points where it seems there's a plan to get us to the end state. And um, I think certainly during COVID and everything, it was definitely a difficult period. But there was a point in 2020, and I think up until now, where there's a part of me that became pretty convinced that the end goal was going to happen. It's just a case of getting there and enjoying it, actually enjoying the journey as hard as it
Mhm.
might be. Um, because just being able to witness it, be conscious of it, and see
Yeah.
it all unfold. And like a lot of people who have got no idea, or at least aren't as interested, to just to be there is a bit of a privilege, really. So that was my perspective, and yeah, I feel like there is a plan. So I agree.
I think there is a plan, and you know timing is going to be crucial right now. And I
Yeah,
think I would I'd certainly keep eyes on some of our wonders like Chris Sharp from Liberation Times. That he's breaking a lot. He's broke so many stories, and he's so wonderful, and he's
yeah,
brilliant at what he does, and he's close to the pulse of some of this topic. And
yeah,
I think we're in for some interesting
yeah.
things
Looking
to come
forward
out.
to it.
Yeah,
And I'm
I'm
hoping
looking
my
forward
job
to it.
doesn't isn't as too busy at the time, so I can so I can really take it. It just feels like
I'm
I
like
was like,
that
it's
constantly.
got to time it right, really. I know I'm
Absolutely.
not the most important person, but you were talking about David Grusch earlier, and I want to sort of dive a bit more into that. So,
Mhm.
I haven't actually watched the full interview with Ross Coulthart yet, but I have seen snippets where I can. Have you seen the whole thing, or have you
I
managed to?
have, and
Okay,
I texted Ross and thanked him very dramatically
all right.
on behalf of humanity. And he just sent me a thumbs up back. I was like,
I think he's super busy at the moment, so I imagine he's getting
he
a lot of
is.
messages at the moment. Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
getting a thumbs up from Ross Coulthart is a thumbs up from me for that.
No,
It's
he's a good guy.
he's
He's always
definitely
he's been very
yeah.
gracious and supportive, and he's been on a show with me. So I've been, he's integrity personified. But I was aware of the article coming out about a day before it did, and it was so interesting. Everyone was starting to talk about it online. The community, you could feel a sense of something was in the air, and those of us that kind of had pre-knowledge that something was about to drop. I was on tender hooks that day because I couldn't. I had a really big deadline at work, and I was like, oh, just checking my because I'm in communication with certain people. And I was checking my phone, and then I seen the article had dropped, and what a brave man. What He is the real deal. Let's get that
Yeah, yeah.
very, very clear. He is the real deal. Um, Vouched for publicly, privately by as many people as you can imagine. And this guy has changed the face of what we're dealing with now. Um, and Ross, good old Roscoe,
Hmm.
he met with him some time ago, and he kept it close to his chest. And you know, I believe Ross when he says the things that he says, and the hour special was fantastic. There's a lot more to come. I know there's another 6.5 hours footage that Ross has. Um, I
Okay.
bel I believe
I
he
thought
will
that had
probably
been released, but maybe not. That's probably why I
no.
haven't seen it then.
No, he hasn't released it. No, um, because there's probably things in that footage where he did attest to it that there's things that made him scared, and there's
Hmm.
things that and I'm paraphrasing here, so please don't like sue me, anyone. Um, but there's things that was in that footage and that conversation that maybe the world's not 100% ready for. But Mr. Grush, Mr. Grush, I keep saying it like Gross's Grush. Mr. Grush, I got a new kitten the same day as the article came out.
All
So
right.
my new kitten is called Grooshy.
All
So for the
right.
next 18 years, I'll be like, Grooshy. She's normally up there, so she doesn't drop down. A very brave guy. Um, what that man's it will be going through right now is outstanding and very
Well, there has been
difficult.
rumors that things have happened to him personally, attacks, which is not great to hear. But I do wish him well. Hopefully, if things are okay.
He's
It's
okay, is my
ridiculous.
understanding right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
and amazing revelations, and I'm really glad that it did make the media give attention at some point, but
Mm.
still the big ones didn't really hit it, and it's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy because I called a friend at one of the, 'cause obviously I've been in PR a long time. I know a lot of people in the media. I called a friend at one of the red tops here in the UK, and I was like, well, we'll call them Eve. And I was like, Eve, what the F? Come on. The Guardian's picking it up, the Telegraph, da 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 da. Da. And she was just like, we just like aliens, Holly. And I was like, what more do you guys need to run these things? What
Yeah,
more? Like, like you're running like stories about some lady who lives in Slough. Not there's anything wrong with Slough. Lives in Slough and a parrot's gone missing. Like,
yeah.
what? And it just drives me a bit mad. But
Or a cappuccino that looks like a Jesus or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's there's that
what? It's like
that's
what?
and also yeah, there's so much depth to this. If they'll just get out of the whole it's aliens,
Yeah.
and
Great. And I
it's
think that
fascinating. Oh my goodness, it is crazy. I mean, if I
nuts.
had like any real connections in the media, I'd probably be pushing them to do something about it. I mean, I do have one friend who been working at the BBC, and I did say, is this going to be coming out? But there's no real
People are
uh
scared, Joe, and
I don't know.
I think
There's no real
stigma
impetus.
it's the stigma as well. And if we rewind back to the NASA conference with the UAP study team recently,
Oh,
one of
yeah.
the themes that I took away from that was they kept discussing the
Mm,
stigma, the members of that team that had been harassed online, that this, that, and the other. Joe, not a day goes by do I not get the most horrific abuse. And I'm a nobody. I just know a couple of people.
hmm
I'm not going to change the world. I don't have a massive, massive platform. Yeah, it's okay, but it's not, I'm not saving babies or rescuing children here. I just talk about a topic. And the stigma that's attached is crazy. And I get it from, friends, family, work colleagues, alien stuff. And it's much deeper than that. This is this is much deeper than little green men flying around in saucers.
mm.
We don't know these things, these beings, this technology. This could have been here for a lot longer than us. We don't know what they are.
And there's so much to discover. Yeah,
So
it's
much. And
it's
if we get past the stigmatized little green men woo aspect of it, people will start to realize it maybe comes down to the fundament. It's We start to ask and pose the questions of who are we?
mhm,
What is our place in the grand cosmic intelligence? What is it to be human? Because if there's these other beings from another civilization or another time or dimension, or out of our view of being able to see, then does it make us as a people question our own existence? And it's just deeper. And that's where I think the challenge lies. People don't realize the depth of it or want to, and people just can't be asked with the stigma of you're into aliens, because we get it,
mhm.
and that's the crazy part. But I think people like Grusch and my dog Tilly, who likes to join in, um, people like Grusch and the next two or three um, witnesses, whistleblowers come forward, the dial's going to begin to change. Do
Yeah,
I believe that there's going to be a press conference where, the president of the United States is going to stand and go, ladies and gentlemen, Zorg is here? No, of course not. Disclosure's not going to come like that. But what is going to happen is more, well, how you can't get more credible than Dave Grush anyway, but
yeah,
you know,
I know.
the safety in numbers. So the more people that come out that are part of these legacy programs, that might have been one of these secret keepers, these religious fanatic people, or these people who are in these special access programs, whatever. If multiples of them come out, which I'm hearing is a possibility, I think that's when everyday people will go, okay, there's 10 of them now. There's 15 of them now. There's
I don't know. I
25
don't
of
know.
them
I
now.
don't know. I don't know how many it will be before the media start changing and reporting on this more. But I think when the media take a more active role in
Mhm.
this,
Yeah, for
things will
sure.
change quite rapidly. They do have the keys, and it's frustrating how little they are pushing it. The big names,
True.
because they do have some
Power.
capacity to
They have
to
power.
change things. They have a lot of power, and it's really frustrating. Just so because you know how much propaganda is in there.
It. I agree with you. Um, Equally, I think we are approaching a time where, well, media is changing. As
Mhm.
someone who's worked in the media, media is changing. We can
As
share
people call it
information.
legacy media. I love that.
Yeah, legacy media, and it is changing. And there's people like myself. I'm involved in a very special project at the moment where we are trying to facilitate a new global media, so we no longer have to rely on what's on a broadsheet or what the Daily Mail or the Mirror or the New York Post or what have you. Look at that article that you know by Leslie Keane and Ralph put into the debrief, the work that the debrief are doing, you know, wow, new
Mhm.
media is emerging. And if the legacy media don't want to play ball, maybe it's time to change the game of ball that we are
Yeah,
playing.
yeah,
And
and I think
I
that's what
think
it is,
that's
isn't it?
happening.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know
yeah,
that
definitely.
it's definitely happening. You know, you've got new is emerging. So if this is part of us rewriting our future, maybe we rewrite. I can't get my arms out. I rewrite
Mhm.
how we consume information. And I'm part of a project that's really looking at how we consume that type of information at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
And at the same time as David Grusch came out, there was also David Steven Greer came out with his contribution, and it's the Lost Century, and his his conference with the second edition to this. The names escape me. The press club, yeah, the press club that he
Yes.
had, yeah, and it was that was quite fascinating. So I wondered what you took from that.
What did I take from that? I think his latest docu-film is probably his best work. Um, I think Dr. Gray does himself no favors in his behavior, um, which is a shame because the man has done some incredible things.
Yeah,
Um, I watched it. Um, I was a little. It's a hard one because I was a little startled at some of it. Um, I think the courage of the people he had speaking up is phenomenal, and we must take these people's claims extremely seriously. We must support them. We must keep the conversation going, and Greer's bang on the money about this free energy stuff. He's absolutely bang on the
yeah,
money, and I fully support that. I I often wish Dr. Greer just had people around him that maybe said, "Hey, Stephen, let's not be so aggressive," or not aggressive, that's the wrong word. It just the difference between the Grush stuff and Dr. Greer's stuff, it seemed very contrasting. And I sometimes feel that the behavioral traits take away from the message. And it makes me a bit, it not saddens me, but I think, "Urgh, like, let me come and do your PR. Let me
yeah.
just help you a little bit."
Uh,
But that's his style, and he is who he is, and he does what he does. And I was very taken back by his claims that he'd helped David Grusch, because I believe and have seen and have had conversations that really do counteract that. And David himself came out and said, no, Dr. Greer did not. So that kind of marred it a little bit for me, which is a shame
mm. He's
because,
a complex character, Stephen Greer, and it
yes,
certainly gives
he doesn't help
there's
himself.
definitely in the community mixed opinions about him. I mean, I completely agree. I think he's definitely put his heart and soul into this since, and he's an emergency doctor. He didn't have much time, and he managed to somehow do what he did back in the day. And he's been involved for decades. He's done so much. I
Absolutely.
hopefully it will be what he's remembered for. But there is
I hope
aspects to
so.
his personality that maybe can let him down a little bit, and trying to come across to a wider audience, which
Hmm.
I try and look beyond some of that, but um, I know what you mean. And with the film, I don't want to sound too controversial here, but I guess um, so back in the day, I remember watching An Inconvenient Truth with Al Gore, and that really struck a note with me in
Yeah.
terms of the climate. And there were similar tones in how Stephen Greer was presenting the same thing.
Hmm.
Having said that, having been someone who was very much sort of very along the line, very much climate activist in the sense I really wanted to push for changes. I've since, and this is partly because of maybe a lot of the other stuff, you see the agendas behind it, you see
Hmm.
how the money has corrupted what might have been started off as a very noble thing,
Right.
and I've become a bit also, I guess, concerned that if the money and investment into the climate change agenda is so focused that we end up losing track of aspects to climate change, which actually I think are more, maybe not
Mm,
as in, maybe more important to me, but we can debate
right.
what's important. But for example, I am not 100% convinced by the science of the whole carbon dioxide and that heating atmosphere, but I do
Right.
know that we are, as a species, not helping planet
Right.
Earth or Gaia or whatever you want to call it. And so we do need to step up to the mark and look after this planet as humans. But
Hmm.
I find a lot of difficulty with a lot of the sort of more globalist climate change agenda. And I think it sounds like you sort of agree there. So it was a bit disheartening when I felt that Stephen Greer in the film was promoting almost like the that kind of globalist climate change agenda rather than just saying we can move off fossil fuels with free energy and you can all
Hmm.
live
We
off
can
the
all
grid at
prosper.
home.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a very positive thing for the whole world
Right.
and relieve poverty a lot. I mean, that's a very big thing, relieving a lot of the poverty in the world.
How are
I
we
don't
in a
know.
situation, Joe, where we still have poverty?
Yeah, it's well.
How is this evening? How have we got these flipping billionaires bouncing around in yachts,
And
and we've got
unfortunately sinking
people?
in
Yeah, like
it's
what
too early
the
for that though.
like? I'm a prolific swearer. I'm really trying not to swear. But what the absolute bleep is this injustice in the world, and
Mhm,
no wonder they or BTs or these other beings, if they are clearly way more advanced than us. We could be millions of years more advanced than us. They're looking at the kid that we're like the kids holding the matches. We've
mhm,
got crazy nuclear weapons that we don't need. We fight each other. We cannot live in harmony. We allow societal structures that keep people impoverished. We let the rich get richer for no reason. We have destroyed our seas. We've made animals extinct. We have messed up our ecosystem. Like, we're not doing too good, are we? We are
mhm,
not doing too good. And no, like, I often think, do they look at us and go, they're not ready? They're
mhm,
still like running around, killing each other. We don't have to live this way. And that's when, you know, is that part of the reason why it's been kept from us in a way? Are we not ready? Like,
mhm.
are we
This
a
is the conundrum
species?
I have, and then you were
It
saying it
like
earlier
keeps me
about
awake.
yeah. Well, you said earlier about the criminality, and I agree. There's definitely culpability and criminality that needs to be called out, and of course, justice served. However, it does. I do wonder a lot about, I guess, how the passage of time from then to now happened in a way that created this.
Mm.
Was it an organic thing, or was it sort of like planned from the start in a way, or to what extent, or how could we have played out the timeline differently that got us to a point where we had all this stuff sooner, where maybe we weren't ready? I mean, there's aspects of this that it's hard to comprehend, but
Right,
maybe one day we'll look back on the 90 years that have unfolded up until now, where this secrecy's been,
right.
and somehow come to terms with it in a way
Hmm.
that understands why it happened from a higher perspective. And it's hard
Mm,
to see from when you're inside, within the wood to see.
of course.
I wonder about that a lot, and I wonder if there's going to be that moment where we'll all look back and say, as bad as it was and everything, and why didn't have this technology earlier? Maybe it was the right path for humanity, given who we were then. If you think about the rise of fascism in the 30s and
Of course.
all the things going on in the world, um, communism in
Gosh,
Russia and China, and
we're just
um,
wild as a species. Like,
yeah,
and I remember there was an episode because I'm a massive Star Trek fan.
mm,
I love it. I mean, if I'm having a bad day, there's nothing a bit of Star Trek can't solve in a nice cup of tea. And I remember watching an episode, and I think it was like Voyager or something, and they land or they're outside this planet, and there's these quite primitive, like people, and they're all praying to these unknown gods, and they're all destroying each other, and I remember thinking, is someone having a laugh with us?
mhm,
Because that's us. That is
mhm,
us. We cannot get along. We don't live consciously. we destroy everything. We're destroying ourselves. It's profit over people. So no flipping wonder that we haven't accelerated or evolved into what we may be, because these ETs or these beings, we don't know if they're humanoid-esque. I don't know. I've not met a gang of them. I've had my own experiences, but we don't know, like fully know. They could be us, future us, and maybe they do look back at us and think, they were really like primitive apes,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I mean, in the
this
same way that
bit
we look
in a
back at
way,
hunter gatherers, isn't it?
yeah, and we're
It's the
like,
same thing. Yeah.
they're like huffing and gruffing at each other, and
Mm,
very primitive lifestyle. But
yeah.
to them, perhaps, we're this whole new, we don't need, we don't countries don't need a big bomb. We don't why, why do you need a big bomb? That bomb goes off, we're all dead. And like, it's a deterrent. Deterrent for what? If that you press that button, that is humanity done, 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 done.
Mhm.
And I just think the kids are in control of the matches, and maybe that's why we have these incursions over nuclear sites, that they do switch them off, because maybe they view us like, oh, the kids are at it again. Oh, we need to step in
Well,
and
it does seem like there's been like almost like
right.
there's been a group of them that have said, right, we're going in, we're going to go tell them that world peace is coming, and they've got this new technology, and they step over the red line, and then all these people come at them with guns and start shooting at them. We're like, whoa, 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 and it's like,
Mm,
I think there's been effort after effort to come in and say, hey, look, we're fine, and then
yeah,
just keep shooting at us like idiots, and then they
crazy.
said, shall we just take a step back and wait a bit, shall we? Yeah,
Let
okay.
them grow.
Yeah, let
But
them
it's
go a bit. Yeah.
interesting. If what really stuck out to me about Grusch's interview, um, was the fact that humans have been harmed and killed
By
uh,
who though? That's the question.
by this, by them or by us, and we've hunted them, and da,
Isn't
da,
it?
da.
If you
And
listen to Steven Greer, he says it's all us, human-made UFOs and human abductions. Where if you listen to David Grusch, it's there are some bad ETs out there and there are some good ones. So I'm probably more on the side of David Grusch's argument. I can't imagine that all of them out there are benevolent. There
no,
must be a whole mixed bag of things out there.
of course,
But what's
but
yeah,
yeah,
I guess yeah, it's just that's what also let Stephen Greer down a little bit with those
yeah,
comments. Yeah.
and and I did an article last September with the Daily Mail. And I get a bit of stick for it now because, yes, my views have changed, not massively, but they have evolved, because I'm a human and we evolve and we grow and we change. And I was very much in that Greer camp. I'd only had really positive experiences, nothing crazy, nothing bad. It was all love and light, great, great, woohoo, until I then had a negative experience. And that negative experience changed a lot for me. And that experience was, I'd been in deep meditation. Um, and, I made a level of contact that was different to any other C5 I'd been involved in. I was alone. I was at home. My family wasn't here. And I was visited, I think is the only word I can use, by beings, and I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. I couldn't wriggle anything. I was consciously aware that I was in my home. Time had changed. It was now dark, and I was aware of things around me, and I was experiencing feelings that weren't mine, which is a bit of a headbend. And I felt viewed, like I was being viewed. And I wasn't like terrified, but I was a bit like, am I having a psychotic break?
Mm-hmm.
What is this? And I was very tense, and I remember tensing myself, but I just could not get up. I only sleep 4 hours a night, so I know I wasn't asleep. And then I was left with a message, wordings in my head, and then I kind of came to, and it's this experience had ended. My dog was growling, which she doesn't do. So something happened to me that night. I've several hours of missing time as well, and I'd never experienced that before. But I'm glad I did experience it because I got to have experienced, the real positive, the orbs coming at a C5 event, and oh my gosh, that's incredible, and what's visited me all my life, and then having that experience made me go, okay, this isn't all like peaches and kittens and rainbows and skipping around under the beautiful blue sky. There is depth and layer to this, and I believe that that happened to me for a reason. And I speak to a lot of people involved in the community and who are avidly into the phenomena, and the phenomena starts to interact with you in a way. And I believe that experience was to give me the knowledge that I needed to stop this whole, oh my God, it's so like wonderful. And I'm very clear now. I've just recently come back from a C5 heist expedition. We took some of the guys out, and I wasn't like jazz hands about it. I was like, this is no joke. We are making contact with unknown entities. I don't know what they are. I don't know. But it's about intent. If we intend it to be good, hopefully energy matches energy. But I'm quite that I think we'd have to be bananas to think that they were all good out there, like you said. I think you have light and dark, warm and cold, matter, antimatter, above, below. The universe is in balance. So naturally, there has to be bad and good, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
I'll stop
totally.
me rant now, but it
No,
just
I
did.
no, I totally agree. Actually, I kind of, as I said, a bit like I was saying earlier about how we might look back on this period and see
Mm,
it meant to happen. It's I look in life now. I try to view life as a series of balance, as you said, the balance of the dark and the light. And
hmm
I don't enjoy the darkness, but I feel like I welcome it as a necessary part
hmm
of shaking up
Oh,
things. Because if it wasn't for the darkness, we wouldn't be able to grow. So
agree.
yeah, it kind of, yeah, this whole thing of not just UFOs and consciousness and our place in humanity, all these things, they've all really changed my perspective on my own life and things in ways that I guess takes away some of that ego or
hmm
that fear of dying and feeling you haven't made the most of life, or all that
Right.
kind of negativity that kind of makes, I guess it does give you the drive to do something with your life, but at the same time it does hold you back as well.
For
And
sure.
yeah, it's interesting. So, you had a out of potty experiences as well?
Um,
In,
I don't know. I think me and you may have touched on this before privately on one of the chats.
yeah.
I do a lot of um Monroe Institute stuff.
Hmm.
I was so blessed to be invited to do something with them not so
Oh
long
yeah, I
ago.
did something with them last year, and yeah. I went to the. Did you go? I guess it's not far for you, is it, to get to? Or
Up by like Preston ways up
yeah,
there. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah,
Luigi's just such a great guy, and
yeah, yeah.
shout out to Luigi. He's been nothing but a gracious, wonderful um player in the chaos that is my pantomime of a life. And I interviewed him not long ago as well, and Monroe's shoot fantastic. I'm an absolute like that experience really taught me that there's more. I knew there was more, but I keep getting more. It's more evidence based to me now. These things and experiences keep happening. So the experience I had at the Morrow Institute was mind blowing. Certainly traveled somewhere else is the only way. I definitely went through the
Uh,
gateway somewhere else for sure, and I'm hoping to go be back in a couple of months to do something else with them. But I've had some experiences where I feel I have left my physical body, but as a meditation practitioner anyway, that's kind of part. I meditate for nearly an hour every day. If if I can't get an hour, I'll try and get half an hour. I do believe that we have more. If humans only knew their power, if we
mhm.
only knew that we are connected to the fabric of everything, I think we'd be a much more peaceful race and species.
Hmm.
So, the whole astral travel, out of body experience, I think if people experience that they can be more than their physical selves, wow. Do you not think that would change us? Do you not think it would change the way we interact and
Oh yeah,
communicate? We'd
I
stop
think.
being like crap towards each other because we know we're more than just emotion, we're more than finding out what Kardashian's bum's bigger or what
Well,
what
it's
prize
definitely
to have.
changes your
Yeah,
perspective in ways that
right.
take away a lot of the power that the ego has on your
Right.
decision making, and
Hmm.
makes you also give you a sort of perspective of your own individual part that you're playing, and not having to think I have to be a this or that. That's
Right.
I'm okay that I'm not good at X, Y, and Z, and I am good at other things, and
Hmm.
I choose the journey I'm on. I guess, yeah, I'm choosing the life I'm in, not that
You
it's
create it.
predestined. Yeah, you're creating it. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
And that's the hard part. I'm such a contradiction because I'm sitting here talking about this stuff with you, and I've had the day from hell today. I have been really unmotivated. I've definitely had a couple of cries. I have been so exasperated by the deadlines I have. And, sometimes we have to stop and go, none of this really, really matters.
No,
We
it doesn't.
focus on
I mean, it
where
matters
we're
that I can pay for the family and all this, but it's apart from
exactly
that, it doesn't matter. It's all fun and
the
games, isn't
mix
it?
for this, of course.
Yeah.
But the fact I have sat there today, like, oh my god, my
Mm,
life's a mess. No, it's not. It's
mm,
just we have to focus our intention, focus within our consciousness, and remember that we co-sign crap sometimes. And actually, if we have that knowing that we
mm.
are more than this and this house and these diamonds and these glasses and whatever your cars we drive and holidays we go on and whatever shoes we're wearing. I have to often remind myself that if we live consciously, if we create and focus on what we are, not what we was or what we will be. And that to me is really important. And I'm so glad we've touched a little bit on consciousness because maybe I needed that reminder today because I've been so stressed out and
Mm.
so worried about deadlines that I've actually lost sight that I can create a better situation by thinking about it and focusing on it. So thanks, Joe. I'm going to go to bed a little bit happier tonight.
Oh, well, I think I need to remind myself of that, to be honest.
We
It's
do. We
with these
all
deadlines
do.
approaching. Yeah. Yeah. So, thank you for talking. I think it's been great having touching on so many areas, and I wondered if we could just finish by letting you sort of plug your podcast that tells people about where to find you. And
Yes, you can find me. I do a lot of my conversations actually through Twitter Spaces, which is kind of a
Mhm.
new media which people are using. I then often drop them onto my YouTube channel. So Into the Weird, WYRDE. But I would also, being the opportunist that I am due, me and the team, we are due to release globally a brand new app that is called Project Nanu. And the app is going to help people investigate the unknown. And it's an app that has been made by the people of the community for the people of the community. And it covers all aspects of the phenomena. So it's not just like UAP or UFO, it's right through to paranormal, things that go bump in the night, cryptids, all of that type of stuff. So Project Nanu is due for release real soon. But if anyone wants to engage with me or have a chat with me, I'm an open book. You can find me on Twitter, and my handle is that UAP girl. And yeah, DMs are always open, and I'm thrilled and so grateful, Joe, for you allowing me and my non-stop talking on your show. And thank
No,
you.
it's
I'm,
been
I'm very grateful of the opportunity.
great. Thank you for your time, and hopefully speak to you again another time.
You will for sure, for sure. Thanks, Joe.